Good evening, everyone, and welcome to CASE. This is the Communication Arts Senior Exhibition. I'm Dr. Christy Gardner, and it's my pleasure to serve as the chair of the Department of Communication Arts, Theater, and Art here at Gordon College. And it's also my pleasure to serve as the professor for our senior seminar. It's our capstone course for the Communication Arts major. And that's what we have gathered here for tonight, is to hear from 5 of our seniors and the projects that they've been working on all semester long. For our capstone course, all of our students begin with a challenge, and that is to look around at our world and to identify some kind of public problem, social need, and figure out how communication can kind of move the needle on that issue. And using all of the good skills and knowledge that they have learned in the communication arts major through the years and applying all of that knowledge to their particular problem. Now, tonight we're going to hear from 5 of those seniors, and we also have a whole bunch of other ones that have put their projects and their project presentations up on our website. A few more of those will be joining in the next couple of days, so I do encourage you to take a look at those. If you go to Gordon's webpage, and then it's /CASE, C-A-S-E, Fall 2020. You can find the other seniors' presentations there. So what I'd like to do now is just introduce to you each of our 5 panelists for the evening, and they will be presenting their projects in order. And then at the end of our time together, we will be taking questions from you all. So as you're listening to the presentations, feel free to just jump in the Q&A there at the bottom of your screen and to type in a question. And then we'll save those and we'll get to those at the very end after the final presentation. So in order, here are our presentations for this evening. First will be Rachel Bovee, and she'll be presenting on the church in the digital age. Secondly, we'll be hearing from Deepak Bardhan, presenting on human identity. And then Autumn Roberts on organizing an event during COVID-19. Mandie Salmon will be presenting on mental health advocacy, a social media campaign. And then finally, David Bello will be presenting Opening the Curtain, a talk on racism. So without further ado, let me turn it over to our first panelist and presenter for the evening, Rachel Bovee.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Gardner, for that wonderful introduction. And I'm very excited to get to share with all of you my final project called Church in the Digital Age. All right, so let's get started. As I said, my project is titled Church in the Digital Age. And in this presentation, I'll be sharing the project design, description, and the implications. So as far as the project design, really this came out of everything that happened this year. Due to COVID, we saw a dramatic increase in the ways that churches were utilizing digital platforms. And so I really wanted to look and examine how are we using these platforms and how does digital platforms change and affect the nature of church. So a little overview of my project. First, I conducted my own research, online research, looking at different articles and blogs. I then also created 2 different surveys, one titled Nature of Church Survey, and the other one was called Pastors and Ministry Leaders Survey. Then I also had the pleasure of interviewing 6 pastors and ministry leaders. And so then I took all of this research and the data that I collected, and I created a pitch deck. So the purpose of this pitch deck is I want to be able to give it to other digital or other pastors and ministry leaders as they look to utilize and steward platforms well. So as far as the significance of my project as a communications major, like many of the other communication scholars before me, we learn about the importance in studying digital platforms and how they have impacted and affected our society. So I think it's really important to study their effects as we use them. So a little bit about my project, going into further detail. This is a little bit of the research that I was able to compile. So I looked at this organization called Barna, and they they've done a lot of data and research on church and also digital platforms as well. So they did some of the work for me. But I found out that about 52% of churchgoers prefer physical gatherings, 9% say they prefer digital gatherings, and 35 claim preference for both. That 9% of practicing Christians and 20% of non-practicing Christians say they take advantage of digital options on a day other than Sunday. This is 2 examples of the surveys that I conducted. So I use the platform Typeform to conduct my surveys, and I will share with you guys some of the research and data that I collected. So from my surveys, one of them was really for the public or anyone who is going to church online, just to get a little bit of their feedback of how they've been interacting with these platforms. So 94% said their church is online or uses digital platforms. 61% of people prefer YouTube to connect to the church out of all the other digital platforms. Google Meet is a platform that people seem to struggle with the most. And then distractions at home is the main reason why people feel less engaged watching church online. And most of the feedback that I received from people is that they were looking for more of a connection. They wanted more authenticity to show through the digital platforms, and they wanted to be able to connect with people more. One quote from someone from my survey, they said, "The digital aspect of church doesn't seem as genuine compared to being physically at church." And so that was something that people felt like they were missing from digital platforms. So like I said before, I also had the pleasure of interviewing 6 other pastors and ministry leaders. So this is some advice that I gathered from them. One pastor said, "The completeness of sanctification happens in community when we get together and confess, pray, laugh, and work together." And so all of them spoke of how important it is for the body of Christ, for Christians, really for anyone, to be in community with one another. And they said the best way to do that is in person. Though all of them also said that digital platforms are a really great way to build and establish connections. They said, one pastor said, "If we can lift up Jesus with these various platforms, that is our job. It is up to God to work out the details." And so this pastor spoke specifically about how it's very important to put God first and just to trust that God will continue to guide their digital platform ministry. And then another pastor said, "I want to be a student of this. God called me to preach, and part of preaching includes technology. I want to treat it as ministry." And so I think that's just really important to understand that digital platforms can be stewarded in a really great way, in a really cool way, if we remember to use them as a form of ministry. So as far as the project implications, I think my project overall is a really great example of how we can learn from other people's experiences and from their stories. You know, I was talking one-on-one with pastors and really got to hear their heart as to how they are stewarding digital platforms. I think some of the constraints include my small sample size. So for the congregation survey, I had about 124 people providing feedback, which was awesome. It was really cool to read everyone's feedback. But as far as the pastors and ministry leaders, I had only about 20 pastors respond, which was great. And I was super thankful and grateful to all of them. But I think it would be better to have a larger pool and a larger sample to collect data from. Though I do believe that my project could be replicated and other people can take the idea and conduct their own survey and research in their own community. As far as the role of communications, this definitely cemented for me how communications is an extremely powerful tool and we can use it to change the world. A lot of the pastors are now seeing a global audience. Obviously, we have gone out into the world to share the gospel, but pastors and ministry leaders are seeing a global audience on a weekly basis. So it just cements the idea that digital communications is very powerful and can change the world. And so it's really important for us to learn how to be good stewards of those platforms that we use. So what I learned so much from this project. I had so much fun just creating it, but I learned that media is a double-edged sword. There are a lot of really awesome things, but also a lot of really negative things that happen with the media and with digital platforms. And it's really important to study those so we can learn how to continue to improve upon those platforms. I definitely learned that people crave community, whether that is in person or through a digital platform. People want to find connection. One of the pastors said, church isn't just about content, it's about connection. People are not hungry for content, they are hungry for connection. And so I think that's really important. And it's really important that as we continue to use digital platforms, we remember to check our hearts and our minds as to why are we using them and how are we leveraging them. And then also just to continue to trust in God and that He will help us to use them. And so I think if we do that, we can learn to steward these platforms well. So thank you so much for listening to me, and thank you so much for allowing me to share a little bit of my project with you. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something well. And now I'd like to pass it off to my colleague Deepak as he shares his project with you all.
Oh, hi guys, and my name is Deepak, and I will be speaking on human identity. Just give me a moment, I'll just share my screen really quickly. Yep. So yeah, so human identity, this is the topic that I chose for my senior seminar, mostly because with the growing pace and the chaos going on this world right now, I just felt like it was a reevaluation, and I think we as human beings needed to touch base again on our self-identity of who we are as a person, come back to our basic roots before we go around and go outside the world to change the world. So inside human identity, I'll be talking more about the emotions and metaphors which could happen inside a frame, and how a picture depicts a picture or a video depicts how important identity is to a person, and how even from the past and even towards the future, um, the human identity stays valid throughout. Reading from the basic human identification of what human identity is, it relates to a person who of who you are, of what you label yourself to be as a person. And this could be differentiated because of your gender, your race, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your ability, your status, your nationality, and whatnot. But one important basic thing which we would all be connected through this is the basic human bond, which each and every person shares, which is almost being diverted and altered by the current trends that has been happening throughout the globe right now. So in this project, the main problem and the audience that I'd be focusing on is, since this is a more of a broader topic, the audience, it applies to almost every human being. And the problems which I'll be questioning here is mostly about how the society has changed our perspective of lifestyle, and how human emotions have been altered throughout, and how the trends have also altered our way of actually being a human being, and how a photograph comes into play, and something as simple as a decent picture could be so much important and has so much significant for a person in his lifetime. So I tried to compile myself, and I tried to make a documentary style video in order to showcase how important this is. So the other part, when it comes to the project design of it, since it's like a broader audience, I thought of like bringing in all the factors and all the experiences that I've had for the past 3 years. So I collected all the footages from the past 3 years, as well as some footages from media and uses in our during our current times, and also during COVID and during the Black Lives Matter. And I tried to implement them inside this documentary short video. When it comes to the project description of it, it's living in a culture full of competition. It's always like a growing trend of a person to follow whatever the world is making him go into, rather than a self-identification of what that person was actually meant to be, his purpose. So through this, I want to actually try to share why it is important and how a person could come back to his natural form, to his purpose, and to his identity before he tries to go around and go out to change the world. There's this particular saying that try to make your bed before going out of the door to change the world. So at this point, with this video, I wanted to somehow show that a person should first try to identify who he or she is as a person before trying to before he or she is confident enough to go and change the world how it is. And also bringing in photographs into the frame. This video will actually showcase how photographs hold emotions and memories of a person which may have been changed over the past couple of years, but then it stays constant because of a picture, and how important it is, and how it is good for a person to actually be when he actually goes forward with his future, and also for the future generations to come. Making of this project, like I said earlier before, again, I collected a bunch of the footages I took from my previous clients. I have been doing wedding photography for the past 4 years now, I'd say, and I've been collecting footages of what I did with them, as well as implementing the emotions that I was able to capture through them into this. So I tried to bring in whatever footages I could so that I could compress them inside this 2.5-minute video in order to showcase how emotions play such an important role for us to be sane as a human being. And also some of the elements the other element which I used here is actually a form of a poetry, which I used through a help of a friend in order to like depict how important human identification is, which has been fading away slowly. Some of the implications, some of the project implications which I will be able to address through this project are why it has been important and why we need to treasure moments which had been fading away. And something which I was able to learn through this communication part of things are how there are different forms of communications, the importance of silence, the importance of being reminded over and over again of how we tend to forget the basic understanding of human beings, and that we have come to a point where we had to fight again over and over about human rights, which is a really sad case. But then if history has taught us something, this is something which humans and us as human beings, we need to make ourselves aware of the fact that we as human beings, we have to stay together no matter what, and try to remind ourselves of what is right and what is wrong. One more important thing why I wanted to bring about this topic was mostly about the changes of how ideologies can alter a person's mindset throughout his span of life, and how we as human beings can also change, adapt, and modify towards that particular area of life. And this is a little video that I tried to compress and make. Hopefully it sort of gives you more of the input of what I've been trying to communicate with you guys about, or what I've been trying to present.
All men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. Today we are committed to a worldwide struggle to promote and protect the rights of all who wish to be free.
Humanity is a species of fire. Orange heat, the smell of burned wood, the syncopated snapping, the sight of deep black charcoal. The fire grows within, filling the body from skin to soul. It lives inside, a welcome blaze, radiating warmth, a steady sound that keeps ebullience, a view that burns the eyes, a warmth that fills the heart. And if things are not exciting enough, things burst with intensity. Images dance across the line of vision. Features begin to take shape. The face of humanity comes to life in pictures. And while some say a picture's worth 1,000 words, I say it's worth more than that. In essence, it's an extensive emotion and has an ability to acutely affect people. It can cause eruptions of laughter, stir sorrow in souls, be a foundation for fighting, a source of solicitousness, knit a family together, bring back bygone bits of infancy, of childhood, along with adolescence, and most importantly, of innocence. Human identity is abstract and concrete. Innate and learned. Powerful and fragile. Human identity is invaluable.
Yeah, that was it, guys. Thank you so very much. And now I'd like to pass it on to my friend Autumn for her presentation.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Autumn. Thank you so much, Deepak. That was a beautiful project. So my project is called Organizing an Event Through COVID-19. I'm now going to share my screen with you. Okay. Okay. So this project focuses on an event that I've been planning with my internship over the past 4 months. My internship is through a nonprofit organization called Advocacy Village. It's a summer camp for underprivileged children and youth. The camp is located in Portland, Maine, but I work from their business office in Norwood, Massachusetts. So the problem that my project really addresses is COVID-19 and just the obstacles and hurdles that my organization and I have had to overcome while planning this event. So what this project is going to consist of, I'll be talking a little bit about nonprofits, the budgeting that my organization and I went through to plan this event, some venue searches that I helped with alongside my coworkers, as well as some other things that we still have in the works, and just kind of how COVID has unfortunately hindered the process of this event planning. So I just said my abstract. Okay, so a little bit about nonprofits. Nonprofit work is known mainly for its mission-driven core. And while working with an organization such as Advocacy Village, I've really learned a thing or two about the differences between a profit-making industry and a nonprofit-making industry. I've learned how to be flexible and about flexibility in itself, and just being able to adapt to changes in how you're targeting your population, and just the community surrounding that organization as a whole. I've learned about communication, of course, and just incorporating my studies and my major into this project as well. Just learning how to engage verbally with clients. I've done a lot of reaching out and talking back and forth, either through email or over the phone with a bunch of different clients. And just like learning how to be professional in that type of field as well. And mainly passion. The people I work with at this organization are so passionate about the type of work that they're doing and the kids that we serve. So I've just really been able to be motivated by my coworkers' passion and be able to see really the joy that this type of work brings them. Okay, so I'm now going to move into planning out the budget and how I did that. So looking at this spreadsheet right here, I'm just going to move this over. There we go. So looking at this spreadsheet I have right here, this shows all of the planning and budgeting from this year's event as well as past year's events. Nonprofit budgets are unique and they take a lot of time and just kind of brain power to get through and a lot of numbers to crunch. And just how to understanding how to create an event budget in order to put on something like this. Just a lot of different kind of work goes into it. So pictured on this spreadsheet in 2019, for example, I highlighted my box down here. Our total revenue goal was 132,000 to bring in for the company, but we actually only ended up getting to 92,912. So what I've found out just while working on like a project like this is that because of COVID, we really had to shoot lower in money and what we had calculated what we'd be capable of even raking in just because of COVID and money is tight just in this time. So we are still in the process of bringing in our revenue, but as of right now, we have 92,000 in total that we've been working with, and we continue to have sponsors coming in. Right up here, we have 31,000 as our 2020 goal, and we don't quite have our actual yet, just because we're still in the process of planning in hopes to get this event into spring of 2021. Oh, there we go. Okay. So step 2 of this process that I would like to share with you is the fundraising and promoting via social media that went into this project. So this was actually my favorite part because I really like working with social media and being creative. Our organization took part in a lot of different fundraising opportunities, but something that we tried new this year in hopes to raise money for our event was called 5K for Kids. And how that took place is that we had every child create their own registration page, kind of like a GoFundMe page, if you will, just so the child felt that they had their own special page where they could reach out to friends and family. They could have their own special message on that page that like told them why Agassiz Village was special to them. This event that we're putting on, how money that we raise goes towards the camp, goes towards the kids and their livelihoods. We had to review a whole bunch of different COVID protocols. We couldn't actually hold the event in person due to just regulations and protocols. So this 5K event took place virtually. So the kids and families that wanted to participate signed up online, and they were able to participate in a challenge week, which was full of fun games and prizes and raffle auctions where the kids had an opportunity to win fun prizes to the New England Aquarium, to Storyland, a jungle gym, outdoor jungle gym area. And I helped a lot with the promoting on social media. I made a lot of the posts. So this is just an example of one of the posters that I made to help promote the 5K that we posted on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I think we may have even put it on LinkedIn, just to really get ourselves out there and promote a few more things. And this was something for the kids. If you put yourself in a raffle, you could get the opportunity to go to the New England Aquarium with your family. And so even though we were raising money for the kids, it was like fun for them. So they were excited to help us raise money and raise money for their camp. Um, yeah, so shown below. Okay. All right, so towards the end of this 5K event, we raised a really substantial amount of money for our organization, and we couldn't have done that with all the donations that we received from our families and our campers, and so we were really, really grateful for that. We even beat our goal, which was really awesome. And I do believe that promoting it helped us do that for our organization. So moving on to venue search, this is something that I specifically have been working a lot on as the intern of this organization. Finding an outdoor space takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of hours in calling people, calling restaurants, calling tent companies in hopes of having our event outdoors. Currently we have 4 different venues that we're looking into that have either a rooftop for a restaurant area to be able to host a significant amount of people on. We've also been bouncing back and forth between ideas of a parking lot or a food truck type of ordeal. And I've been emailing, sending letters, personally calling many different restaurants and food organizations just to hopefully get an idea for the budget and just to see what our options are potentially for the spring. We've had to push back our event now many different times just due to the capacity of some of these restaurants. So right now we are looking at either May or April for hosting our event, but we may have to change that and alter that a little bit because right now we are allowed to have 100 people in an outdoor space, and all of our venue prospects do have that amount of room, but it's really like what the guests prefer and what they're comfortable with. So the most recent project that I created was a survey. I did it over SurveyMonkey. And this was just, there we go. This was just a brief 10-question survey asking our guests what they preferred, if they preferred two separate time slots, just so we could keep social distancing in the back of our mind, just like what they preferred for entertainment. And we also will be having a live stream option for guests that wish not to attend just for their own personal reasons or safety reasons. So this survey that was created just kind of asks those types of questions. Entertainment, what type of food, if people would prefer cocktails and tasting portions or a meal. And we've actually gotten a lot of different restaurants getting back to us on how they would prefer us having a meal instead of tasting portions just due to COVID protocol. Just like how that rule was made when you had to order drinks with food at like bars and restaurants. So that's just what they want us to keep in mind, which has been like just something else that we've had to keep in mind and as we push forward. So planning this event amidst COVID has had its fair share of trials and tribulations and hurdles, but I am continuing to learn from it, and I find myself really growing as a person and as an intern, and it's just been an amazing opportunity for me. And I would really love to go into this type of business once I graduate. And it's just helped me mature professionally as well. So I just hope that I'm able to have this event run smoothly for everyone that attends, and working alongside my coworkers, my organization. And yeah, it's just been a really awesome experience. So That is all. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and listening. And now I'm going to be passing it off to my classmate, Mandie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mandie, and tonight I'm excited to share with you my project. So I will be presenting on mental health advocacy, and I did this through a social media campaign. Okay, so you may ask, why mental health? Now, I've always had a passion for mental health and those of us that are going through depression, anxiety, or just have negative thoughts in general. Now, according to the World Health Organization, close to 800,000 people die due to suicide each year, which is one person every 40 seconds. And I think that number is alarmingly high, and it concerns me a lot. Also, so many people suffer in silence because they believe that, you know, it's a taboo to speak about their feelings or just issues concerning the mind. You know, I am the ministry leader of As I Am Ministry, and it's a broad platform online which hosts over 500 participants. And some of the issues that I hear daily, they are heart-rending, persons struggling with their emotions, depression, and stuff like that. Also, I believe that, you know, this project is relevant for the time that we are in, because we are facing a pandemic and we are going through a world crisis right now, and that can have a major impact on people and their mental health. All right, so we kickstarted our social media campaign on World Mental Health Day, and that took place on October 10th. And so here, as you can see in this picture, we have Ivory Mendez and Tamara Austin. Tamara Austin is a medical student at the University of the West Indies, and she's an aspiring psychologist. So she's also very passionate about mental health and, you know, helping others to speak up about their feelings. So we focused on three tenets or three aspects of mental health, because, you know, mental health is very broad. So we focused on depression, anxiety, and negative thinking. And so that is what they spoke about in the video, and they just raised awareness on mental health. All right, so the next thing that we did was to host our event, Traverse. And so I wanted my social media campaign to be a social media campaign with a difference. I wanted people to be able to actively participate. I wanted people to be involved and not just look at us speaking about our experiences from afar or posting quotes on Instagram from afar, but I wanted them to be a part of this experience, to be a part of the social media campaign versus watching it online. So I came up with a virtual event called Traverse. And as the name suggests, Traverse is basically moving towards wholeness, healing, and purpose in Christ. So this event took place on October 17th, and we hosted this event in Jamaica. I flew to Jamaica for it because I am a Jamaican, and I know firsthand that mental health is a taboo in Jamaica. Persons don't necessarily feel comfortable speaking about their mental health in Jamaica. So that was one of the main reasons why I traveled to Jamaica for that event. So leading up to the event, we had a lot of posters online, a lot of campaigning. So we did a lot of advertising. On WhatsApp, I even had a group called the Conference Network Group. And those persons have over 50,000 followers on Instagram, 15,000 followers, 12,000 followers. Myself has 6,000 followers on one page and then 3,000 on another page. So I made sure to advertise the event so that persons could know that we are doing something that is going to help you with your mental health. So as you can see in the pictures, these are some of the flyers of the speakers that were at the event. I also reached out to someone who's very popular on Instagram, a popular musician on Instagram, because, you know, we want that crowd. It's a virtual event, so we want the people who are popular on social media. And he agreed to perform at the event. And so that drew in also a lot of people to the event. So some of the strategies I used to create a buzz on Instagram, I posted videos in different languages. So the first video I posted was of myself advertising the event in English. And then the second video we advertised in the Jamaican patois, and then the third video we advertised in Spanish, because we wanted people to know that, hey, this is a virtual event and it's a global event and you can be a part of this. And so the event was actually very, very successful. We had over 75 participants on Zoom and over 1,000 people watching on Instagram. All right, so as I said before, the event was very, very successful, something that I'm very happy about. So at the virtual event, of course, we had the cameras set up. The background was really nice. We were sponsored food, stuff like that. The Lord really did provide. And so we had 3 speakers at the event. Kamik Stewart was the first speaker, and she spoke about low self-worth. Ivorine Mendez was the second speaker, and she spoke on depression. And myself, I was the third speaker, and I spoke about negative thoughts. And that was a success. All right, so based on how helpful the event was. The first event was the University of the West Indies in Jamaica, Faculty of Medical Sciences. They saw our event and they said that they wanted us to host a similar event for their students for the Faculty of Medical Sciences. So I did that with my team, and we continued under the theme Traverse. Also, persons were very excited about you know, our events. So I did 2 other events, prayer and mental health from a biblical perspective. We posted also a lot of videos on Instagram, over 13 videos explaining mental health on Instagram, and persons sharing their personal stories of how they've struggled with their mental health and how they overcame. We also did a lot of encouraging posts on there. And as you can see, we have like a gold yellow theme, because yellow is representative of hope. And I want people to be hopeful about their mental health and about their mental state. All right, so we've had a lot of testimonials. I didn't get to post all of the testimonials on screen. Persons were just saying they are happy that they're not alone, because they've struggled with suicidal thoughts. But hearing persons speak in the videos on the social media campaign, they've realized that they're not alone in this. This is not a struggle that they're going through by themselves, and that there are other people who have gone through these struggles and have overcome these struggles. We have Terry Salmon, who is going through you know, depression right now, and said that our mental health campaign has inspired her to express her anger and her moodiness through art. And some of the resources that helped me are Christian and Mental Health on Instagram, Jillian Salone, 100 Scriptures and How to Regain Your Mental Strength by David Burgi, and the Self-Compassion Workbook. And I really, really learned a lot from this social media campaign. I learned a lot about mental health. I learned that the power of communication is impactful, and it can connect people globally from all over the world, and not only connect people, but give them a sense of community, a sense of purpose, and a sense of knowing that they are not going through their circumstances and their situations alone. So I am really happy how this project turned out, and I am glad that I went all in and did it to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm going to turn over now to David Bello.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is David Bello, and you guessed it, I'm a senior. And today I have the special privilege of being able to present my senior thesis to you all, which I will share my screen right now so you guys can see. So let me just go ahead and do that. Great, cool. So my title for my senior thesis is Opening the Curtain, Talk on Racism. Just a quick overview of my overall senior thesis. The project itself is a video project, but I figured I come and I present my project to you guys all tonight, so you can kind of get an understanding of the reasons as to why I decided to choose a video project to be exact, of this kind. So yeah, so a lot of you guys probably already know a little bit about me, but there are probably some other people here that don't know too much about me. So just to give you some background before I get into the project itself, I am a photographer and a filmmaker. I live here in Boston. I was born in New York City, specifically the Bronx. And I have this desire and this passion to create work that actually means things to me, that's purpose driven, and it has significant meaning behind the work that I'm doing. And so super interested in going back into the city to continue doing purpose driven work for that matter. But the purpose of this presentation is not to talk about myself, it's to talk about the event. So let me get into that. So addressing the problem, opening the curtain, a talk on racism, is an open dialogue space for people to talk about their personal and traumatic experiences with racism. Racism is not a new thing. It's been in here in this country since the beginning of time, since the beginning of this country's origins as well. And so the idea is to use visual storytelling as a medium to tell through the lens of photography and videography that racism is alive and well, for bad reasons, obviously. But I decided to do a video project that is with the 60-minute style version of documentary, outlining people's personal experiences with racism, especially for those that are learning about racism and are interested about learning about racism for the first time. So the methodology of that, the way that I was going about the project itself was through filming. I had an idea of doing an in-person filming session with the people, my close friends that I agreed to do the filming of, but because of COVID, I had to resort to Zoom, which is fine. So yeah, and like I said before, the audience are the people, or the audience is the people that are interested in learning more, not necessarily about other people's personal experience with this, but rather people that are willing to take a step into the world of the BIPOC community, into learning more about their experience and hearing them tell their story for the first time, just because history hasn't always favored in their favor, just because, yeah. So just moving on here. Why does this matter to me? Racism has been around since the beginning of history. Like I said before, and to this day, people of color still suffer the burden of generational and systemic racism. So much so that these traumatic events shape one's outlook and perspective on themselves. So not only does society, because of racism, society is giving this form of identity because of the way that, you know, racism has enabled people to think about a certain group of people in the community, but it also affects the way that people from the BIPOC community see themselves. And that's very evident for a lot of people that are representative of that BIPOC community, that they undergo these traumatic and racist events, and they see it in levels of category and of levels of racism, as in, okay, maybe that event wasn't too racist, so I could put it aside, but there are levels to racism where I have to feel like, okay, that was a little bit too much. So putting together a piece for the sole purpose of educating others of these everyday microaggressions and gaslighting not only creates a safe space for open dialogue to happen, but also enables to see many different forms of racism that it comes in. People's stories matter, especially those that don't have the opportunity to tell their stories to others. So having a project of this kind to be able to document people's storytelling abilities in their traumatic events with racism is incredibly important. And one of the main reasons, actually the main reason why I wanted to do a project of this kind. So
and
go ahead,
if you don't mind,
pause this real quick and give you guys just a quick 5-minute preview into the overall like uncut 35+ minute video that's on my YouTube channel. I have the link here, but I'll post it somewhere else later on if you guys want to watch the entire thing. But let me just go ahead and play this so you guys can get a glimpse of how that video project turned out to be.
And if you don't mind just elaborating more, like how did that make you feel?
The first time I heard it, it was kind of like, I need a rewind. I don't think he said that. He probably said something else. And so I myself was questioning it. I'm like, no. You hear these things, but it's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. And 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, because he just said it, it was almost like the word apple to him, or the word and. He used the word and so much in conversations. It just came off his tongue like honey. And it was just like, I had to double back. I'm like, this is not real, but it was. And every time he said it, it was almost as though I was in, it's a bad example, but I was in the ground and like someone just kept pouring like a pound of sand on me. It was just getting hard on my chest. And that time when I broke was, this is for me. This is for all my brothers of color. This is for all my sisters of color. I'm going to shut you up. I'm not just going to shut you up and stop. I'm going to shut you up and educate you at the same time. And it was exhausting because after it was finished and I walked away, I was like, he probably didn't even hear a word I said, but I felt a little freer because I got it off my chest. This is what I had to say.
Honestly, it hurt, bro. Like especially like the not having a dad, like it hurt because it's just like, all right, like I'm a black kid, like I was born black. This is how I am, and like you already have an idea of me. So then it comes down to, do I live up to your idea, or am I gonna sit there and be like, all right, the stereotypes is wrong. Like it's racist. What you're saying is wrong. Of course, like I got caught up in it. You know, stereotypes are fucking terrifying, man. Like I really was just like, yeah, I love fried chicken and watermelon. Like I don't even really like watermelon. It's just, but like you want to fit in. Like you want to hang out with everybody. You want to deal with all that stuff. So like you just shove it deep down, and you're just like, all right, I'm okay with this level of racism, which then just kind of like opens up a whole Pandora's box of the world. So
yeah, thank you for that. I definitely, like, little kids are ruthless. And like obviously, like, those are things that they don't just find out and they don't like just come up with. Those are things that they learn at home, and from other people that think just like them. So like that's, and I remember Young Achievers, like going to that, like, yeah, I remember.
Bro, yeah, some wild stuff was said, even down to like teachers. Like teachers already had like the preconceptions of us, because it's like we went to school in like Jamaica Plain. That's where it used to be. Mm-hmm. Well, most of our teachers were like white women. Like, they already had an idea of what we were, and they had their own ideas of what we were. Like, I don't know if you remember, there was a kid that we went to school with. His name was Cedric.
Oh, I
You
do
remember
remember.
Cedric?
Yeah.
They were always like, Cedric was a problem student. Like, that's how they automatically marked him. Dude just had ADHD. You know what I mean? He was just hyperactive. But like, they put him in the box like he's a bad student, so I'm gonna treat him like he's a bad student. And I remember like he was some teacher he was like roasting or something, and she's just like, "You're a thug." He's in third grade. How's he a thug? He's a third grader. Like, is it that serious?
At first, like, I didn't know what to think of it because I think I would just, because since I was very young and being exposed to that, I kind of just thought it was the norm, especially because as much as my parents tried to teach me about racism, because it was such a natural occurrence at my school, I just sort of became like desensitized to it and normalized it in my life. And so it kind of almost felt like Stockholm syndrome, where it's like these people are literally abusing me, but I still want to appeal to them and, you know, like love them and be compassionate towards them and still gain their acceptance. And so it kind of affected me in the way of like, at first it affected me a lot, and I sort of just had to just get through it because living in like Connecticut, especially the Northeast, it's very white, and like we weren't going to get up and move to a different town because like we didn't have the financial resources to do so. So I sort of felt like I just had to suck it up and like keep going with it until I just like got out and went to a more diverse school. So I think it was just me getting hit with it at first, but then realizing that this is just something that I'm ultimately going to have to deal with for the rest of my life. And that I'm just going to have to become more, not normalized to it, but back then I just realized I had to just like succumb my feelings and just not be so like vigilant about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like code switching in a way, right? You had to learn how to not only code switch, but also like assimilate. So you had to like, so.
Cool. So that was just a very small preview. It's probably like a long, lengthy video, but it's out of 35 minutes. So the longer version is on YouTube. I'll send the link over to those of you guys want to watch it. So, but just getting more into the actual video itself and the topic overall, the visual aid was the video. Video is a new way to teach and educate people, especially now in the COVID era where everything is on Zoom, everything is digital, everything is video. So and at least and I'm biased obviously because I'm a filmmaker, I love visual storytelling. The best way, in my honest opinion, to educate people about this particular topic is through visual storytelling, whether if that's photo, whether if that's through video, whether if that's through any other visual medium, educating people, especially about racism and about the things that are going on, is almost a requirement to have some sort of visual aid to it. So obviously with the pandemic, there are some problems with filming because, like I said before, I was planning on doing it in person, but still the main message is clear and it's there and it's communicated. So the role of communication, like I said before, communication is all around us. I mean, if you look at the Bible, Genesis, God started with words saying, "Let there be light." Communication is the way of life, and I think it will be an injustice to not have space for conversations of this kind to not happen. You know, so I feel like communication, in my honest opinion, specifically with the world and with the way things are going on in our country and in everything around us, it's incredibly important for people to feel safe and for people to feel comfortable enough to talk about the stories, especially if they are about their personal experiences too, because they matter too. So What I learned from this, as you can see, I put 2 T's here under watt, so it's not the power watt, but it's fine. I learned, like I said, that people's experience matters so much. I don't think we'd ever get anywhere if people didn't feel comfortable talking about, who they are and where they come from. And their experiences and their stories and the things that and where they come from matters to them because it's what makes them who they are. So having a project and doing a project of this kind not only allows people to feel more comfortable around you as they talk and open up about their lives, but they're giving you that opportunity to be vulnerable in front of you over things that are very, very traumatic. In this case, racism and experiencing racism. Nobody ever wants to do that. Nobody ever wants to experience that. And I don't think people that experience racism almost on a daily basis would wish that on their worst enemy. But the purpose of this is to educate people that racism does come in many different forms. And so having that open dialogue about things that are very traumatic and incredibly emotional matter as well, because they are their story and what makes them who they are, but it doesn't define them. It's part of their story, but it doesn't define them. So being passionate about the work that we do and the stories that we tell ultimately make the world a better place. And that's where I'm leaning at right now. And that's where I've learned throughout the project is that I want to continue to create meaningful work similar to this, where it's purpose-driven and it has meaning and significance to it. So I just want to say before I end, just a special shout out to my 3 close friends that I interviewed here, Travis Trotman, Marvin Smith, and Liz Barnes. You guys have helped me out so much, and I appreciate you guys so much for letting me use your stories and allowing for me to be super comfortable and for you guys to be incredibly vulnerable with me on Zoom camera. You guys have helped me out significantly. So that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and feel free to ask questions now, where I'm going to be turning it over to Dr. Gardner for Q&A. So thank you so much.
Thank you, David, for that presentation. And thanks to Mandie and Autumn and Deepak and Rachel. Really great work. And now we have about 10 minutes for questions. So let me invite all of our audience members. Just go down the bottom of your screen, that Q&A button, if you've got a question for one of your presenters. And while you're doing that, let me invite all of our 5 panelists to unmute your video. Let's see. Unmute your sound, start your videos, and join me in our Zoom space. And while our audience members are thinking of questions, I've got one that I would like to start out for all of our presenters tonight. I thought it was just fascinating how all of you, in your own ways, either dealt with this particular time of pandemic, either explicitly in what you're looking at, or certainly your work was impacted by it. And one of the things that has impacted our lives during the pandemic is what we're doing right now, this whole kind of digital universe that we're living in. So my question for you is this, really based, Rachel, off of I think one of your pastors maybe mentioned this at the beginning, that thing about content versus connection. I really like that concept. And so my question for all of you panelists, are you like thumbs up or thumbs down in terms of the role of digital technologies or these new communication technologies in able to establish connection between humans during this time of pandemic? Or from what you've learned in your projects, is it just pumping out content? Where do you fall on that divide? So from what you've learned in your projects, are you seeing that the communication technologies are connecting us or somehow dividing us in the way it's just using content? I'll open it up to anyone who would like to start.
I can start. So there are definitely some cons when it comes to technology and its role in society, as there is with every other thing. There are pros and there are definitely cons. But doing my research and doing this project, I realized that there are a lot of pros because now is an extremely lonely time for a lot of people right across the globe. And just creating a WhatsApp group for other young individuals to talk and to express themselves as a safe space, that has helped them a lot. So I believe that, there are a lot of good that can come out of digital technology.
Second, Mandie was saying, quite honest, I went into my like is forms of being in person, but I learned a lot about how digital technology, and like really grateful during time of pandemic when we're all separated. I think a lot of it goes back to intent behind it, to look at our heart, use them, that it be really helpful and that we can use them to bring people together.
Would someone else like to answer? Yeah, David.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Yeah, definitely for the time that we're in now. I mean, when it comes to doing meetings and maintaining those relationships with people through a digital sense, it's you kind of lack the emotional sense that comes with, fostering those relationships that you have with people. So definitely when it comes, it is at the end of the day creating content, yes. And it is a little bit different because you don't get to see that person face to face, and so it already triggers a different emotional response that it comes with if you were to talk to that single person or to a group of people in person. But I feel like at the same time, with the digital world that we live in, those relationships can still have the same effect on either end if those relationships on either end are intentional and people are being intentional with fostering those relationships with one another. So I think, yes, it is hard just because we don't get to see that person, that person that we're talking to in person. Yet at the same time, if you are really careful and you are incredibly intentional about the people that you are talking to, then I don't think it would have much of a difference. Just more of an excuse to connect with people that live probably maybe around the world. So, yeah.
Thanks, David. Deepak or Adam?
So for me, what was really interesting for me was that I haven't seen my mom and my brother for the past 5 years, I'd say. And the last time my dad came to visit me during the pandemic. And I think it was in March that he came to the States, and that's when the pandemic hit really high. And I could not even connect with him. But somehow I eventually connected with him face to face in person. But one funny incident which happened was that after the pandemic, me and my family started speaking to one another more via Zoom and via video calls, which I found very interesting for some reason. And that being said, I want to say that definitely COVID has come as a blessing and a curse. But at this time, I feel like I've tried my best to take it as a blessing. And the same way, even with videos, like even with video chats and not being able to see someone in person, I feel like we're fortunate enough to come to a stage where we are able to actually communicate with one another via video. And I'm very much supportive of the fact and very much towards the fact that, yes, video chats online, I think it is a blessing for us that we're able to do that. That I would side with that. I'm not going to say that it's a bad thing because, there's like so many examples. Even pastors at first, they used to be like, oh, try not to go to Facebook anymore. And now if you go to Facebook, they'll be like, come join our live online service, you know? So it's just like situations that have changed. We as human beings, we have learned to adapt since the dawn of, since our history shows us. But yeah, for me, I'm for this. The video chat has come as a very good thing for us. Yeah.
Thanks, Deepak. Autumn, any comments from you?
I would have to say that I'm also for it, just because this is like what we're given at this point in time. And I'm just really grateful that we are able to like have things like the media and just like different platforms that we can contact each other, connect with each other with. I think it's definitely different. I've had friends that, family members that I can't see anymore due to COVID, but I've been able to connect with them over something like this or like FaceTime or, so yeah, I feel that even though it's not as personal anymore, I'm really grateful for the contact that we do have over electronically, if you will. Just like it's different, but it's like we're still here. So.
That's great. Thanks, Autumn. Thanks, panelists. There are a couple of questions that have come in for David. David, let me ask you these questions from a couple of audience members. So first of all, this just thanks for your contributions, and a question about what inspired you to tackle this particular topic. And then also, what effect did that actual interview process, that act of listening to your friends talk about their experiences, have on you personally? So what inspired you, and then what impact did it have on you?
So for my final project, I had a lot of ideas. I had a lot of ideas on things I wanted to do, and I had a lot of things that I didn't know, like what I wanted to do for my final project. But I think what happened with me deciding on doing a project like this were the actual events that happened on our campus. Two of those racial hate crimes happened on my floor because I'm an AC in Sevilla, and so for me personally, I felt like it'd be an injustice to not do a final project that is kind of regarding the racial events, the racially charged events that have been happening on campus. And so I just wanted to take this opportunity to be able to talk on that and to educate the campus community too, because the audience, yes, is for people that are learning about racism for the first time / want to learn a little bit more, but in many ways it's for the Gordon community too. And so hearing those conversations and going through those interviews with my close friends, it was hard for me to to hold back those tears. I was trying really hard, and I guess you could say I did a good job in video, but editing the videos and putting it together was very hard. Just because these are my close friends. These are people that are either became really close to our Gordon or people that I grew up being close to. So hearing their stories for the first time and them opening up about things that have happened to them throughout their life and things that continue to happen to them because of the color of their skin, like especially in 2020 now, it was really hard. So but you have to start somewhere with that conversation. So yeah, I hope that helps answers a question.
That's great. Thanks, David. A question for Rachel. Rachel, based on your research, what do you think church is going to look like post-pandemic? Do you think some of these technological social media things that the churches have been adapting, are they going to stick with some of those after COVID is long gone?
Yeah, that's a great question. From what I understand from a lot of the pastors and ministry leaders that I talk to is the digital platforms that they're using are here to stay. I think most churches, not all of them, but I think a lot of them are planning on keeping up with like broadcasting their church live. It's nothing new. A lot of churches have done it before this year, but I think like from the pastors that I interviewed, 60% of them just started this year. And I think they're planning on continuing to do that. But a lot of them spoke about how they want to like breadcrumb people into their church. Like they want to use the digital platforms as a way to connect people with their physical church. So it's definitely going to be interesting. And some of the pastors I've talked about were saying like, oh, you should like do the same research 2 or 3 years from now after like really seeing the effects of it, especially when we don't really know what's going to happen, you know, in the winter or like what's going to happen with the pandemic. But I think the digital platforms they're using right now are here to stay. So my guess, I don't really know. Who knows? So we'll see.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Folks, we are at the end of our time. Let's do one last, we can do a speed round question. So you got to think quickly on this one. For all of our presenters, could you name one thing that surprised you in your research? One thing when you started the project you did not anticipate finding or learning? Can you give us like the 10-second version? What would be that one thing that surprised you from your work? Anyone who wants to start, just unmute yourself and share.
The amount of sponsors that I had to reach out to. I guess I should have seen that coming with nonprofit work, but I've really talked to a lot of different sponsors, a lot of different donors, and it's been a really, really good experience. But I guess I just wasn't expecting, I was expecting it a little bit, but not the extent, I guess you could say.
That's great, thanks.
I can speak. So I was very surprised. I had one pastor who was very young and they have like a young hip church. And he said that like their team was talking about whether or not they should get off social media, whether it's like too toxic of an environment to even be using. So that's like a conversation they're starting to have. And he was the only one who said that out of everyone else that I talked to. So that surprised me.
Thanks, Rachel. Someone else?
So I was surprised at how incredibly difficult it is to create posts that are authentic, but at the same time, visually appealing and entertaining for audience.
Thanks, Mandie. Deepak?
Yeah, for me, what I found, it was sort of like a funny situation too, where I thought that I had scratched the surface of human identity and trying to link that with photography and videography. And I felt like I was almost like inside of it, but then there's this like, it's so broad that I haven't even barely scratched it properly yet. So it was just like, wow, that it's just like, there's a metaphor inside a metaphor. And it was just so meta to get into that. So I was like, oh, wow, I know nothing. So that was a eye opener for me.
Thanks, Deepak. David, how about you?
Yeah, I would say similar to Deepak that the conversation of racism, it's one of those conversations that's never going to end, especially if it's talking about people's experience and stories with it. So I see this as potentially being like an ongoing project. And I don't think one video, even of 35 minutes like long, would be enough to cover the, oh, okay, like here's a checkbox, like we've covered that and let's move on to the next thing. So definitely have to do more work on that.
That's great. Thanks, David. And thanks to all of our presenters. It's just so fascinating to see the work that you started way back in August. Thanks to all of our audience members for joining us this evening. And just another shout out to all of the other, 13, I guess, seniors that are part of our capstone course this semester. Do go to Gordon's website and look for CASE Fall 2020 to see everyone's presentations, including what you just saw here. If you want to go see the individual projects, Dave will make sure that your link is there if people want to see the full film. All of the projects and presentations will be there on that site. So I encourage you to go take a look at all of the students' work. Thanks everyone for your time. Thanks again to our presenters. And I wish you a good end of the semester and a really good Christmas break. Thanks everyone. Good night.